Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're from. I hope you're having a good day. But hello and welcome. I'm Josh Brown, and this is day 5 of Building Master Minutes. The tool that's going to take meeting recordings and turn them into helpful meeting minutes with the help of AWS Transcribe and some OpenAI. Yesterday we were doing some DevOps work and we were using Terraform to spin up some AWS infrastructure to help with the transcription pipeline, and also setting up our Rails app to kick off the job and so pick it up when it's done. And I think we're going to jump back in where we left off yesterday. I can show a little bit of the UI, show where we're at. So if we go to /meetings, you can see here we've got our meetings, we've got the remote Ruby podcast that we're playing around with at the moment. We're using that to use the transcription with. We'll show the meeting. Status completed. That's because we have the transcription. We can go back to another meeting and test. We can go in here, choose our file, upload the file, create the recording. That uploads the file into S3. That file is now stored in S3. I can click this generate transcription button and it will upload it. It's already uploaded to AWS, but it will then send it off and start off a transcription job. And then from there, once it's done, we'll get a status to say that it's in progress. And then it will, once it's complete, come back with a webhook, sending us an SNS notification and telling us that the file has been uploaded to S3, and that will be a JSON file. And that's what we did yesterday. If I do that now and generate transcription, content missing, so obviously I've got a few little bits of work that I still need to do there. If I refresh the screen, it now says in progress. It means it's uploaded and it's now transcribing it. Once that's finished transcribing, it'll come back and tell us that it's done. Great. Let's go back and see where we was at in the code. So the other thing we've done as well is we now have a master minutes repo on GitHub, and we also are currently working in a branch. We're currently in the feature/transcriptions branch, and this is where we're at. We can see where we're at compared to main. You can see we added some stuff in here. And let's get into that then. So the first thing I want to do is just get some tests in place. We did a lot of code yesterday and we didn't really do any of the tests around it. One of the main things we did was the SNS. We created a little library to help deal with the SNS notification. I'll show you what that looks like. The transcriptions webhook controller. It has a receive method that then takes in the payload, the raw post request, and submits that into our SNS notification. Then we wrote a little class around that, which offers us the valid method. We can check whether it's valid, and if not, then we will return an unauthorized. Otherwise, we'll process the payload and we'll handle the notification appropriately. We're also able to do that based on the type of notification we received, whether it is a notification or whether it's a subscription confirmation. Then on here, if we go down here, in fact, one of the things that I kind of, as I'm looking at this now, I'm thinking, why not just handle the notification as a notification? And actually what we can do here, just return handle subscription if notification dot type is subscription confirmation. Otherwise, we're going to handle the subscription, and we can probably just do it like that. And that reads a little bit nicer, I think. Just mute the notifications. Cool. And let's see. So we have our key here, and we have our subscription ID pulled out. This was just some pseudocode yesterday to help set the status up completed. So we're going to write some more code in here at some point. but for now that's fine. I think that makes sense. Return handle subscription if notification type, and then we're just going to do that. The reason we want to return there is because we don't want to do this stuff, but we do just want to process the subscription there. Cool. That looks nicer now. So this is our code. We've got our notification here, and I want to check that this valid works. This is our notification class that we've set up. It takes in that payload. It extracts the type. It extracts the type there and the message, and then we have our valid. One of the things I want to do here is just make this private at this point. Everything below here is private. This is all about the internal of this notification class. Otherwise, the only thing that I actually want to expose is this initialize, the type, the message, and the valid method. These methods are all used internally and probably aren't going to be used directly. So they can all be private. And the reason for that is when I'm testing, I'm only going to be testing the public interface. We're not going to be testing the internals of this class. So really, we just want to check whether this is valid or not. Now, we also have, one of the things I want to do in here is maybe look at how we could reformat this to create those. So I was thinking of doing payload dot like each to the value class val meta reader key underscore dot to symbol. That's not entirely what I want to do there. I want to do some meta programming here. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT. So I now have the latest version of, which is cool. Let's just give it that. Have this class in Ruby. I'd like to write some dynamic methods that extract each key from the payload hash and expose them. I don't know, will it do? I don't really want to do the method missing. And we do class email. And this is going to create a lot more code, I think. Define method. Method's probably okay. Yeah, so we could do that. I don't want to override the method missing. Why wouldn't we use class eval? Based on some dynamic context, such as the keys in the hash. So I could do this. I think the other option is perhaps this approach here, which is going to suggest. I thought we could. So what is the pros and cons of this approach? Define method kind of does work, I suppose. What I was thinking more was something like this. And I think this probably makes more sense for what I want to do because I need to do some other stuff as well. That's not quite what I want to do. I'm going to leave it for now. Leave it. The only bit that was bothering me was maybe the duplication here. And also there's a couple of other places where it might be just tidier to have these like helpers expose the hash. But I need to lowercase these and convert them into a format. But that's fine. Let's continue. So we'll go down into our spec. We'll need to create a new folder or a new file. It'll be the lib, and now an SNS, and then notification underscore spec.rb. And let's just see what it looks like here. Grab that code there. SNS notification. We're going to call it a model spec. It's essentially a horo. And then we're going to say, well, what are the things we want to do? So we're going to pass in a payload, and we expect to see its type. Well, if we pass in an invalid payload, we'll expect it to error, right? It needs to be JSON. If not past a JSON, we'll just open up a new tab here. We'll do our spec lib, and that succeeded. Let's see if we passed in actual JSON that it might accept. It fails, so we know that if we pass it in something that kind of looks like JSON but kind of isn't, like kind of malformed JSON, we know that we get an error. What else do we expect it to do? It returns the type of notification. So, do we need to set a fixture like that? Probably makes sense. So let's go spec fixtures. We'll create a SNS notification.json. We had one of those earlier in our Insomnia client. That's what we were dealing with yesterday. We'll see if we can grab that. This one is one we got from AWS for a file that doesn't exist anymore. And so that should be good to pass in as a notification for the purposes of testing. And so we should be able to file read that SNS notification.json, pass that into our payload, it'll pass the JSON, and then we expect it to be a type of notification. And so if you want to see it, it's in there, there's the type of notification. Let's test again. It returns the message of the notification. I don't know how it's going to work this one out, but let's see if it figures that out. Oh, it almost had it then. Didn't quite get the full it's kind of put an example there. Not going to worry about that just yet. I kind of want to say that well, the next bit I want to check is whether it's valid, right? So let's see it. Describe valid to it returns true if the payload is valid. And signature is valid. Now this should work, but it's also potentially not going to work because why? It got false. And that could be because, is this the one that I tampered with? Did I change the 12.json? Should be 11.json. This is the one I tampered with. 12. Yep. So perhaps now it will work. Yes. So yesterday I tampered with the message. I changed it from 11 to 12, which obviously doesn't match the signature that's here, and therefore the certificate failed. Now, one of the things that's in here that could be a bit temperamental is the fact that there's a signing URL certificate here that was used to sign this, and that certificate URL we request, but then we request the certificate, but the certificate might be I don't return false if payload is invalid. We'll deal with that in a second. Our notification class uses a certificate class to fetch that URL, and if AWS decided to change that certificate for some reason and our notification that we received yesterday becomes no longer valid because of that, that would cause our test to fail, and we don't really want that to happen. So one of the things that I want to implement into my code here is to use WebVCR, is a library I don't have installed right now. WebVCR. Ruby. It's just VCR. And I want to configure this essentially. Now I've been following on this, so I'm just gonna grab that. So let's go through that. In our gem file, we're going to go down here and we're going to add the gem VCR. We're going to run bundle install. And now we've installed the bundle, we are going to go to spec support. No, don't want to close that. Let's close all of these for now. We'll go new file support /vcr.rb. We are going to configure our VCR. And we are going to say the cassette library is spec/VCR cassettes. I don't know if I want to just do cassettes is fine. We can hook into Webmock. We can ignore localhost and ignore hosts. Chrome driver.storage.googleapis.com. And so that will then, when we are using this in our test, we should, is it just going to use the VCR by default, or does it need to? Trying to work out whether we also want Webmock. We're saying we're going to hook into webmock, so it would make sense to, I think, use it. Let's see what happens when we go to run our spec. Now, if it worked, we should have a cassettes folder. We don't, which means we probably need webmock as well. So we'll go to our gem file, and we'll add it down here. Gem webmock bundle install. Okay, now that we've installed webmock, we will also need to probably set up a webmock file in our support file over. Webmock.rb will require webmock rspec because that's what we're using. And then we'll also do webmock.disable net connect allow localhost true, and that should mean that it then picks those up. So if we now do our spec lib, so I think one of the things we probably still need to do is get it to use our thing in our Rails helper. I'm also thinking about moving this into the support folder. Acquire relative. Is that what was used? /support/rspec helper rspec screenshot helper patch. Because that makes more sense in there to me. Let's just check something. So there's something in Rails helper about support. This line here requires supporting Ruby. In fact, that will stop this from being required. Requires supporting Ruby files with custom matches for macros. Files matching spec /*/*/spec or runner spec files. That means files in the support that end up in _spec will both be required and run in spec, causing the spec to be run twice. And so anything in the support folder shouldn't have _spec in it. This recommendation is there. You can figure this pattern there. That's the downside of increasing boot up time, so requiring all files in the support directory. Alternatively, in the _spec files manually require the support. So I'm going to want these things. I need the screenshot patch helper anyway, the VCR and webmock. So we'll keep that there like that, and then we'll run our spec, and we get uninitialized constant webmock. Did we bundle install? Maybe we did. So we're requiring it. I think it's capital M here. No, not aspect. Not aspect. And here we have a bit about VCR. And this is what we expected to see. So now what we've got is we're auto requiring VCR and webmock. Those things are being imported and configured appropriately. We can now close these files and see what we get here. So a HTTP request has been made that VCR doesn't know how to handle. Let's try to get this. There's no cassette. And so we want it to create the cassette. We can wrap it in a VCR use cassette. And that's what we're going to do. So we're going to go to our lib notification spec. Now, I don't know if I'm supposed to have the expectation in there or not. So let's just yeah, so that's fine. So we can just say we're going to use the cassette. It's going to be that payload. I might even, like, there's duplication here. So what we can do here is just do let payload. Unexpected after call without parentheses. And we can do something like that. We call it with the block, and then we can. How do we use the payload? Does that work still? Aspect lib. 3 successes, and then one of the things you'll see in here is the cassette was recorded, and now we use this every single time from SNS. And actually what you'll see is it kind of made first a request, and then this other request is in there. There's 2 requests it made, and they both have that in there. So now that took 0.18 seconds. I run it again, 0.02 seconds. And so that's because the first time it had to make this web request, the second time it's not making the web request. So it's actually made it quicker to run the tests there. And also, if that certificate for some reason vanishes at some point, which it probably will, the tests will just use the cassette, and the certificate is stored in there as part of that request response. The other bit, so these other requests don't need to use a VCR, so I'm not using the cassette with those ones because they're not calling the valid. Anytime we call valid, we're going to have to call the use cassette. But it can be the same cassette because in theory they should all be the same because the payload's the same. It returns true if the payload and signature is valid. It returns false if the required payload is missing some required properties. And this can actually be the same set because the certificate is the bit that's actually valid, and so that's true. That returns false. It should also return false if the payload has been tampered with in any way. And again, the certificate, the actual cassette is the same. And this is kind of a code smell. I suppose I could technically have these as different cassettes. Like the test knows about the implementation here, which it shouldn't do. I don't really want to sub message with foo. What I want to do is modify something in the message. Body of the message has been tampered with in any way. No, I can't. So that's not what I want it to do. We are going to do all of this stuff, but perhaps we do a fixture here where I take this and do like invalid SNS notification or SNS notification invalid of JSON. And what we're going to do here is in the message just change this to be tampered through. That should still be valid JSON, but I mean we've tampered with the JSON, so regardless it's invalid. And we'll do invalid payload is invalid. That's not the right thing here. The payload here is the invalid payload. I think this might fail. No, it returns false. I thought it might throw an error, but actually it does return invalid. Which is good. That's what I expected. Let's see. So I'm really just trying to test the minimum here, and I'm also not going to bother writing tests for the subclasses. So the notification makes use of a signature body and a certificate class, which are defined in here. I'm already testing these by nature of testing the notification, and I'm not going to bother writing tests specifically for these classes. They get coverage. This code here is kind of somewhat unrelated to my application. It's quite generic. And I really just want to test that the kind of core features of the application as I understand them need for this to work, which is we pass in a payload of JSON as the notification, and we can get a signature that is signed and all of that stuff. So that all feels appropriate. We now actually have tests for these things. To make sure that our SNS notification class works. The other thing that I would just say on this notification certificate and signature body is that they're probably not following best practices in some senses in terms of how we pass this notification down. I wouldn't say they're particularly solid. But they work, and I think I also don't really want to spend too much time on this, so I'm writing tests to create a level of confidence in the code here that it will do what it needs to do, and that is all I really need right now. So let's close all of these and we'll review what we've done. So we added webbot and VCR. We've added in our process payload. We updated this function just to make it a little bit easier to read. I think it makes more sense now. I could make a subscription notification question mark class, but I think this is probably okay for now. And it simplifies some of this. So we process the payload, we handle the subscription if there's a notification about the subscription. Otherwise, we just assume it's what we want. Notification, we added private here just to kind of separate this. Doesn't really do too much for us, but it just means that these are the methods that we're going to focus on for our tests and actual utilization. We updated our Rails helper, so we added the support folder, auto include. We moved the RSpec screenshot helper. We added in a couple of cassettes and also a couple of fixtures for our SNS notification, invalid one and a normal one. We wrote a spec for our notification, our SNS notification spec. We added our screenshot helper patch into the support folder, our VCR, and our web mock in there as well. I'm quite happy with that, so let's commit that. What we'll do here is we added tests. We'll just say test the SNS notification. Tests, I'll push. Okay, the next thing that we don't really have tests for right now is we added our subscription. So we didn't write system tests for the actual we didn't write system tests for actually submitting our transcription to SNS, to AWS Transcribe, and I don't think I want to necessarily, because that's obviously going to cause money. It's going to cost money to run the test. I don't want it to cost the bank balance every time we run the test, and I don't think it necessarily warrants that. So what we're not testing here really is, like, we're not actually doing much here anyway. We obviously create a new transcription, set the status, we save it. When we save it, it calls the AWS Transcribe job, dispatches it. Let's take a look at that code actually. Description. There's a dispatch. Yeah, okay. So we call the dispatch transcription job. That then calls transcription dispatch. And that's the model that actually does the transcription. So we could maybe detect this. Cool. We could mock this. I think the VCR cassette obviously records the HTTP requests. We want to check that this gets called, I suppose, the client here, the AWS Transcribe service client. How would you test this class? This model. I wouldn't test that the transcription gets assigned to transcription. It's an internal implementation detail. What we really want to test is that I pass it a transcription and a job gets kicked off with the output key set appropriately, probably, is what I'm testing there. Let's not worry too much right now about the testing of that. I think this, as we kind of build out those classes, they'll make more sense maybe. Let's see. Assignment of an instance variable or private methods. This class, this model, it makes a transcription, and when you call the call method, it should start. The status. Yeah, that would be. So we can mock with webmock or VCR. We can probably mock with webmock in this case, because it's probably going to let us we can stub it to make sure it gets called, maybe. I have both webmock and VCR. And I'm using RSpec. Let's see what it says. Show me the code for the spec file. The more I look at the code here, the less I like the term dispatch. This feels a bit, I'm not really testing that much here. Set. I feel like webmock might make more sense here, so I can also we should expect that the request is made. Like, makes sense. Transcription. Creates the transcription, fine, as per factory. So we can use our factory to create that. Does this also do the expectation? So that sets the context, so that's fine. And expects the request to be made once. Yeah, okay, cool. That kind of makes sense. Fine, let's write code then. Let's go down here. We've got transcription spec. Let's it's in the transcription folder. We'll create a new file, transcription / dispatch _ spec.rb. We're gonna describe the transcription dispatch Python model. We are going to say that a transcription job, sure. Recording, create the transcription based on that. Now that relies on these factories. Now we're creating a recording as a nil file. We can't really create a transcription on a file that's nil. Expect this call to change the reload status from nil to progress. That is what's going to happen. But I think what I'd rather do is something a bit more like this. because we also need to create the dispatch, right? Dispatch equals maybe we don't need that. We can just do cool, reload, and then we expect our host, which we're gonna have to stub as well. And this will be like in progress. And then let's just do our spec slash model slash transcription slash dispatch spec. And it failed. I mean, I kind of expected it to fail. And if I method create. Okay. That's because we're using factory bot, I think it is, gem file. We're using factory bot rails. Create should work then if we're using factory bot. Create recording. Perhaps those things need to be done in let. Perhaps we do let recording, create recording. No method named create. Perhaps I didn't set up factory bot correctly or something. Or perhaps I have to call factory bot as like, because I don't think it's just in there, right? If I get rid of that, perhaps I have to do like factory bot dot create. So I can do that. Meeting must exist. Yeah, okay. Which means I've got to create a meeting. Can I not just keep that in here? Meeting. Create meeting. Undefined bucket. And that makes sense because... Why? Because there's no file attached because it's nil. And so that makes sense. Never mind. Okay, cool. How one of my factories needs to that file that is stored in active storage. How do I do that? Let's see. Does this have anything in around active storage? there anything in like the wiki or the docs? Factory girl rail. What factory girl is? Factory bot. Yeah, what does ChatGPT say? Oh, it's written an essay. One of the things I don't like about the new, they've done a bit of redesign on ChatGPT. There used to be, I think, different background colours, so you can easily scroll up and just see. Now it kind of blends into one big blob of text. So in our fixtures, we do have the file, live at Rails world. And next thing that we want to do, after build file attack. Okay. That kind of makes sense, I think. So this is in the factory. Factory transcription 2. After build, so we're going to leave it as nil, and after we build it, we're going to take the transcription. We're going to attach the file, fixtures, files, live at Rails 12 2023. And that is the name of the file. It's audio MPEG. And alright, so now if I reload this. But because it's doing it in test, it's using the disk service, which means it's not. We've kind of created a couple dependency between our service and our application and how it's treating active storage. It now assumes active storage is S3 for every single environment, and so that's going to be a problem for our code, because our code down here assumes that this service has a bucket name. I don't want to handle that. I don't really want to make it use... I guess it can just use S3 and test. I'd need to create an S3 bucket for test. Like a test bucket. Yeah, maybe that is the best option. You just have to use a test bucket. Let's go to test config file. Cache store, no, not cache store, storage, service, Amazon. It's now going to fail for a different reason. Do I actually want it to put the files into S3? If you're surprised, I'm not surprised. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. If you want VCR to record the request and play it back during future test runs, I'm not sure I want that. If you want VCR to handle requests made while a cassette is in use, configure allow HDD question when the cassette is in use. It'll ignore this request since it's made when there's no cassette. I don't know what that. If you only want VCR to handle requests made while a cassette is in use, so it'll just ignore it. Basically, that's kind of the option there. If you want VCR to ignore this request and others like it, you can set a ignore request. There's hopefully a little link there that kind of explains that in a bit more detail. Maybe I ignore this request for now and just see it fail. Okay, relish. Let's just VCR. Ignore request. So what I want to do here, I want it to possibly ignore the request and allow it through. There is ignore hosts here. And so I could potentially pass an array to that and then also allow it to ignore this specifically coded string. Is a bit that should ignore that then, but probably not. There is no cassette in use. I told it to ignore that host. Simple. Ignore hosts. An array of strings. And ignore hosts. I don't really know how I want to approach that bit. We have our fixture, our file. We're going to attach it to our recording, because that will then allow our transcription to pending dispatch. I think is what the default there. Create recording. There isn't one, we'll use that. And that should simplify our tests more, because actually we don't actually have to create the recording. It's going to create a recording for us, so we can just do that. That doesn't fix the problem that we've got though. usage docs. I think this is what I wanted. Ignore request. Ignore hosts. Kind of what I was doing here. Maybe I should have actually just passed the. I don't need to do the square brackets around that. Does that work? Did. No such bucket exists. It doesn't because I've not set that up, which means we're back into our Terraform scripts, and we need to create the bucket. And fortunately, that's quite easy. We can just copy this, and we'll create a test bucket. I'm assuming that's the bucket that's going to create. Following the name there. We don't just need to create the test bucket. We also need to allow the policy for that user to be able to access that bucket. We'll just allow development test to be kind of part of the same Rails policy for now. And we don't need to care too much about the transcriptions. That's what we're going to put fine because we're going to simulate that. We're not actually going to call that. We're going to use active storage as our bucket for test. And I think that's all of that done. Go in here and do cd terraform apply. That will then make a plan. Tell us it's going to create a new S3 bucket and update the policy to allow the user to use that bucket. Webhook subscriber. Okay, so it's going to change one, which is going to change the policy here. And it's going to update that. It's going to change it to something that's going to be known after the apply. So it's going to create the S3 bucket. I'm going to say yes to those changes. And then Terraform is going to spin up a new S3 bucket for us for our test environment, and so going to update that policy. If I come back now and do dispatch spec, it's going to run into this next problem. But so it did upload the file. I'm curious though, it uploads the file, but does it delete the file? We're going to log in screen for a second. Where that application's gone. No. I'm just going to open that quickly so I can get my passwords. And we're in, and bring that back. So I want to check that in S3 we've got our muster minutes test. Create the file, but didn't delete the file, which is interesting. So this is going to build up potentially if we get tests that fail. If we run this test again, it's going to fail. And because it fails, it's not going to clean up these. It's going to upload these files into S3, but it's not actually going to delete. That's something to consider at some point that we'll need to deal with. But we'll deal with that later. A HTTP request has been made to AWS transcribe. Now this is the one which we want to stub or mock. And so we can close that, and we can just quickly reference the book that I was going to look at. Around webmock. So what I want to do now is I want to stub that request. Now we know what the URL is. It's this URL. What we're going to do, before we call it, we're going to stub request, post, the AWS transcribe URL is that. And to return, I guess for now that'll do. It's going to fail for no reason, but we'll fill that out. The other option here is to get transcribe to do it, but transcribe doesn't have access to that bucket, I don't think, based on the policy that we just set up. We can start any transcription job, but what was down here, this bit, oh, that's the topic policy, and so we don't need the topic policy. I could, rather than stub, perhaps we just store this in AWS transcribe URL. AWS transcribe URL equals and we're going to expect a request post to that to have been made. One. Maybe I could just use VCR webmock here. VCR dot use cassette transcribe. And just have it do it for once. I mean, the other thing that we could potentially do is just actually have it use S3 the first time, but just have the cassette record the whole interaction. And what I kind of want to be able to do is change the config within the test. So at the moment we do that, can I not? Fine, let's just see, let's we can use a cassette. Let's maybe not do the, although it's going to be annoying, is this is going to be in every This is the default now. So you kind of almost always need to have VCR around this. And any request to fetch that file as well. Also, there's a potential here that actually, because of S3 and the way it's going to work, is it gonna, or because of active storage, it's going to generate that ID on the Rails side, and that ID is going to be unique every single time. And so it doesn't matter. I don't think you could VCR cassette, because I think, is it still there? Can I get back to what the request was? This random key on the end here, it's trying to put that into S3. That's going to be different every single time. See, it was different here, 9EJ. And then here it was 16V. So that's not really going to be an option anyway. So I think let's take this bit. Oh, not all of that. Take that out. Put that up there. Just to make it clear that actually the bit that is using the cassette is this bit, the dispatch. But that is going to get filed, uploaded to S3. What is kind of annoying is that the file is going to be different every single time. And that is going to cause problems because this is going to have to create a new cassette every single time. Oh no, it's not. This is using the URL, and the URL. We might have to stub it. Depends how VCR defines whether it should use the request from before. I guess we'll see. We'll see. Does that work? I've told it you can use cassette. So I used cassette over here, right? Yeah, use cassette, give it a name. Use cassette, give it a name. As soon as we create this, it triggers the after create callback. And so this is actually already calling the dispatch because we've created the transcription. And so, I mean, that makes it quite hard to test. And this is why I mean, this is the reason I wasn't going to test this. I could put that in there. It's going to end up calling it twice. Skip that that one. Requested job name already exists. Use a different job name. Yep, because it's already stuck it into AWS Transcribe the first time. Because one of them was in the thing, right? The VCL. And so what happened is it created it, and then set to get created with all of the data in there. And now it's the bad request one, and it's already doing it. Oh, that's annoying. I'm gonna have to. I think I'm gonna skip this. Perhaps even just delete that file. Yeah, I think I'm gonna throw it away. I don't know if I actually want to. I need to come up with a different approach for how I approach this whole storage thing, with these factories as well. How I'm creating these, because to be honest, I think yep, I'm gonna git reset -- hard. Git clean D, and I'm going to cd into Terraform and Terraform apply. I'm not entirely sure on that approach. So we'll clear that out. While that's doing that, I think what we'll do, that's probably going to cause mayhem in AWS, because as soon as I delete that bucket, AWS Transcribe, which is currently transcribing random file, that's another problem. These IDs are probably that's the one there, 15. So, but that's going to cause a conflict at some point for I'm only at 13. And for some reason our test environment there is saying 15. So again, AWS Transcribe kind of needs the environment name in the transcription job if we're going to do any of those. I'm just going to delete the file and change the policy back again, because they don't make sense. Bucket needs to be empty. Test. You've not emptied it for me. Apply. Let's see, get that done, and then that will go. Fine. So I mean, so let's get. I kind of want to. It's been a couple of days of trying to get like a bunch of boilerplate stuff in, and I want to feel some actual sense of progress. So I think what I'm gonna focus on. Why is this still bucket you tried to delete is not empty? Obviously, the transcription finished. Yeah, permanently delete. Like, not putting stuff in my bucket. Get out my bucket. Hopefully this time it'll work. Yeah, I want to basically get some of this stuff working. I want to see the transcript is what I want to do. And so at the moment we have a controller. At the moment we have a web controller that tells us when the transcription's been added, and we're able to update the recording with the status to say it's been completed. What I really want to do is download that file from S3. I want to download the file from S3, and then I want to store that data in the data column on the transcription. And I might do other stuff with it, but I'm not sure yet. Essentially, where we want to get to is seeing the transcription actually embedded in here. Transcription mapper, downloader, I think downloader makes sense. We're going to download the transcription. From S3. Ruby S3 get file, like from a bucket. Can't be asked to read docs, I'll just use ChatGPT. Right, writing at Ruby Rails at application via webhook to tell me when file added S3 bucket. Now do I now fetch the contents of that file? That's what I want. I already have that. Obviously we're using storage. Our AWS credentials already set. We just obviously will need to set those up if we're going to initialize the S3 client again. We have the webhook receiver, we have the file information, and really that's all we need to do, other than obviously set the credentials. We have our bucket name and we have the file key. For now, I'm going to just stick this in the controller. It's not where I want to keep it, but let's just do it anyway. Download file. No, not that. Store that there like that. Then we'll get the response. I don't know if I want to do that. Just have it simple. S3 get object bucket name. Oh, I could just do bucket and key in there like that, I think. File equals I already have the bucket name. That notification message S3 object key. We know what that looks like because we've got our SNS notification here, right? But it's stored in this string bucket. And it's got a name. Is that next to the object? Yeah, so there's just bucket name. So we can get the bucket. I think we had this yesterday, but then I deleted it. It's just bucket name. Bucket. And then key is key. And we can just do data as file. Okay, that sounds quite simple. Obviously this needs tidying up again. But that should store that data from S3 into our database. We might even want to delete the file after that point. This all really feels like it should happen in a job, and then the job should process that. But we'll set up that structure soon. I'll just run this and hope for the best. Data here isn't about the it's the recording. Find the recording. It's like this is the recording ID. I should change that to transcription ID. I'll do that in a bit because I need to clear out those jobs. The other bit that generate the transcription controller, we are redirecting to there. The views, this is kind of unrelated, but I'm just remembering it now. At the moment we have a recording and it has a show and it has this recording transcription turbo frame tag. Which means our show really ought to have that round it. As well. At transcription.calling.meeting. I think that makes sense. I mean, the other option is to have the transcription controller redirect to the meeting path. And the meeting path is just going to have that in there. It's going to render all of these things, and the meeting path is going to render the recordings, and the recording the transcriptions. And it'll include all of those turbo frames eventually. But I think that's fine for now. Fine, let's destroy that meeting or go back to meetings. 5 at Rails 12:23. Create the meeting, upload it, create the recording, generate the transcription as it's in progress. Console.aws is then going to send it off to Amazon Transcribe. 16 is in progress. I don't know what happened to 14. I think I uploaded it but never submitted it for transcription, maybe. Because this is the recording ID, not the transcription ID. Which does present a problem if you delete the recording and then add the recording again. So I definitely need to change the IDs here to become transcription IDs. But once that's in progress, that should... I mean, one of the things I'll want to see, really, is what's going on in here. If errors or not. And we should see a little message pop up in here once we get... once a transcribe job is finished on AWS. Not that file. That one. Once this is finished, it should upload the file into our S3 bucket, which will send a event to SNS, which will send a subscription, our subscriber, a notification, and that will come through as a request into our Rails app, which we will then process with our SNS notification model and check its validity. And if it's valid, then we will process it. And if we're processing it, we'll then be downloading the file from S3, it uploaded, and storing that in our database in the data column. That's the plan. So we'll wait for that to come through. And then we'll see how this goes. I've got to wrap it up, I think, in the next 15 minutes or so. Fish! How's it going, man? Yeah, there's been a lot of that the last couple of days. And then what's annoying is when you play the waiting game and it says, oh yeah, you forgot to do something really simple, like add the AWS credentials to control. Oh, this is asking for something that I didn't put in there. Yeah. Where was that? I copied that code from somewhere. Not the spec, the notification, SNS notification. Wasn't that the subscription manager? I should have grabbed the credentials and stored them. Oh. Nah, do that again. I should have really... I don't need to do all of that again. All I need to do is simulate the S3 part. So if we go to S3 and I go to the development folder and I find transcriptions, there's transcription 16. If I download transcription 16, delete transcription 16, heavy into integration testing at work with plans next year. One of our data suppliers change over to AWS. Nice. What are you using at the moment then? Is it all on-prem or? Undefined variable method bucket name. Oh, I suppose it's now going to retry. There's like a retry logic going on because it failed. That's actually kind of useful. But now I feel like I'm under pressure to get this in. Where was this code happening? It was here. Download file, bucket. Our download file takes a bucket. There's the bucket. Bucket. Undefined local variable bucket underscore name. That's because it's just bucket. Bucket. Same with this, just key. Okay, pull it again. You watch, there'll be a back off, exponential back off now. Not fully speed, but believe it's more changing from their own data centers to be more cloud based. That makes sense. It was an insurance company, right? It's still at the same place, I assume. They typically are on a lot of on-prem, their own servers and stuff. Cool, okay. So it looks like that did store that big blob of JSON in there. So if I do Rails console and do transcription dot last dot data. Maybe if I JSON past that. That's a lot of JSON. Doing the same-ish work for insurance company. Been moving between companies. Not gonna lie, it's a bit of a mess. Yeah, that sounds about standard for most companies, but. Hopefully there'll be light at the end of the tunnel. This is cool. I've actually got this stuff stored in the database now. Kind of. Maybe I should have passed this as JSON before storing it. Also, I'm only meant to be QA, but since some of the other people on the team are inexperienced, I'm coming up with solutions. So that's fun. That's cool. I mean, not so cool about the team being inexperienced, but getting kind of experience coming up with solutions and stuff. I kind of want to let's do t equals transcription dot last, t dot data equals JSON dot pass t dot data, and then t dot save. And then we can do t.reload. Yeah. And then we can do t.data. Cool. So now it's actually storing the JSON in there rather than a just string of the JSON. That JSON is a little bit mental. There is a lot going on there. Not sure if you've heard of Radar Live by WTW. That's the main service. I don't think I know of that. Radar Live. Radar suite. Okay. Like a pricing model type thing. That's cool. Yeah, I never really got involved with much of this level of the kind of when I was working at previous insurance company. Never really got involved too much in the pricing calculations. Yeah. Now that I've got all of the data, I kind of want to show it in here. If I refresh this, it now says completed. If I show the underscored transcription, I guess I can do something like if transcription.data code. About that. Transcription.data. That feels dangerous. Yeah, there we go. That's a big file. Can't understand that. Can't say I understand the coding base, but I understand the infinite flow of data and actually translated along the way. Yeah, that's half the battle sometimes, just understanding the flow. When I started working on this project, I built out a bit of a map of stuff of what the flow is that I'm going to start trying to build. The idea with this is that you can create a meeting, you can go into that meeting, you can upload it, it stores in S3, then you can ask for a transcription, it will generate transcription, which is kind of the stage we're at now. After it's generated the transcription, the next step is to build some sort of UI so you can actually see what's in the transcript. And then once I've got that, I'll plan. This transcript isn't necessarily quite right because it'll also have diarization in it. I'm going to have it like break down speaker by speaker. And then the plan will be to send that to OpenAI to turn it in 2 minutes. But it's very cool to see the actual transcript now, actually. But yeah, understanding the flow is kind of half the battle. And then the coding part is like learning syntax and the rules of the language and stuff like that. And then obviously logic and that sort of thing. What language do they use? Or what languages are you using at the insurance company? This code is a mess as well, so don't judge. This is me like hacking stuff away basically to get this working, and then I'm going to refactor it later. This is a job name. Got results, transcripts. Transcript is an array, and then we've got our transcript. So let's actually, in here, perhaps we can just do, is it capital R? It's lowercase results. And inside results is transcript. Then we've got 0, and then we've got the transcript itself. And that should refresh, just give us the tip. And the end result will be to kind of take this and like we'll do a quick rough version. Right, minutes for this meeting. And ChatGPT Plus has increased the context window, I think, now, so that will actually accept that, even though it's such a long text. And actually, it's doing a pretty good job at that. And I don't know how it's worked out who said what, because it doesn't have that in there. Obviously, it's working out based on the transcript mostly. Now, for it to actually be useful for what I need it for, there's going to be a few extra things that I need to do. That's quite cool. Quite cool to see that almost at an end-to-end flow in here. Let's wrap this in a paragraph tag, because that should put that down so the width makes more sense and easier to read. Yeah, next step's going to be to do diarization, I think, but I'm going to have to call it there, I think. I've not actually been told or shown much of the code, so I'm not sure on the actual language used. Fair enough. Yeah, I think I'm going to call it there. Let's see what I've got on the code so far. This needs refactoring at some point. I don't even know if it's worth committing. But very cool to have that in there. I think when I come back to it, I'm going to have to tidy this code up a little bit. Put that into a job, perhaps, and have it processed separately from this webhook controller. And then once we've done that, I will continue moving on. Also, before I go too much further with this, I want to turn on diarization. And so that will change the format of this JSON anyway. We'll get something slightly different. I'm still not sure about storing all of this big blob of JSON in the database. It's one big fat value for that column. There might be some downsides to that. And I also need to map this JSON into smaller objects that I can manipulate that are going to be stored in active record. So it's probably going to be a little bit more complex than what we've got right now. But it's kind of cool to see the transcription live in there. Cool. I'm going to... not going to bother committing that. I think I'm going to leave it. I think I'm going to call it there. For today. Did I stop the job? Yeah, because the service was running in there. There. Yep. Oh, echoed. Cool. Thank you for watching. I'll won't be on at the weekend. I guess the next stream will be Monday. Probably about between 10 and 11 start time. And yeah, we'll keep building muster minutes. Thank you. Bye.